And welcome back to Hannity. So the Trump administration, they're working hard to fulfill all the campaign promises that the president made to you, the American people. They seem to be checking them off the list. It's been a very busy week for the White House, and earlier today, I traveled to D.C. to speak with the Vice President, Mike Pence. And here's the first part of that interview. Take a look. Mr. Vice President, how are you, sir?
I'm great, Sean. Welcome to the Vice President's office, and welcome to the White House.
What a beautiful office. Number one, I saw a lot of signatures inside your desk, going back to Theodore Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower, even Al Gore and Joe Biden signed it, so I assume. This has been fast-moving administration. From you seem to be involved in every aspect of what has been happening. How close is the relationship now?
Well, I'm just very humbled to be a small part of an administration and a president who, from the first hours of this administration, have been keeping their promises to the American people. I have to tell you, right after the inaugural ceremonies, right after the parade was over, I walked with the president and other members of our team into the Oval Office, and he sat down and started taking immediate action. I think it's been a great encouragement to people all across the country to see that President Donald Trump is doing everything he said he would do throughout the campaign, and we're just getting started.
Let's talk about Democratic opposition. You've had a hard time getting some of your cabinet members through. I think a lot of Democrats are pretty dedicated to a filibuster to prevent Neil Gorsuch from getting on the Supreme Court. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I got to tell you, it's been very disappointing to me to see the level of obstruction that Senator Chuck Schumer and Democrats in the Senate have put forward with regard to our cabinet officials. We're pleased to see Secretary of State Tillerson
that was last night,
approved and sworn in the Oval Office. But look, if you compare to prior administrations, the pace at which Democrats in the Senate are forcing this process, I think is a real disservice to the country. Yeah. And we're going to continue to drive forward. We're going to get the president's cabinet approved, and we're going to get that nominee to the Supreme Court approved. The American people want to see this country moving forward. They want to see this new president have the cabinet around him and have the appointments that he's determined and been elected to make approved by the Senate. They have a role to play, but that's not about obstruction. It's about advice and consent as appropriate. We respect that process, but we continue to drive this effort in every way possible, because President Trump deserves his cabinet, and he deserves it in the near term, and the American people deserve a new justice on the Supreme Court of the caliber of Neil Gorsuch.
One of the big issues that has created a lot of controversy is executive action on extreme vetting in 7 particular countries. It's been misreported as a Muslim ban. Chuck Schumer said it was mean-spirited and un-American. Now, there are some 40 other Muslim-majority nations that are not impacted. As a matter of fact, 90% of Muslims worldwide are not impacted by that. Yet the news media continues to say it's a Muslim ban. Is that fake news to you?
It really is. And any fair-minded person looking at the president's action knows that what President Trump has done is essentially impose a pause on countries that have been compromised by terrorism, so that we can evaluate the screening process and establish an extreme vetting so that people coming into this country don't represent a threat to our families and to our communities. It's an indefinite pause with regard to Syria, but with regard to the other countries, we're going to be calling on the Department of Homeland Security, all of our team to work together to evaluate how we can continue to go forward with immigration from those countries, but not compromise the safety and security of the American people. But clearly it's not a Muslim ban. It's not in any way associated with religion. The president made it clear in this executive order that we are not going to compromise the safety and security of the American people with regard to these 7 countries that the Obama administration identified as compromised by terror, that the Congress has identified. We're going to take a pause, we're going to step back, and we're going to put the safety and security of the American people first.
Shouldn't other countries with their history, maybe Saudi Arabia, for example, be included in that list?
Well, as our Homeland Security Secretary said this week in his briefing. This list is really garnered around whether the countries that we're looking at have the internal systems that we can be certain that people are who they say they are. And with regard to other countries, Saudi Arabia being among them, we have confidence that they have the kind of safeguards, the kind of law enforcement, the kind of screening in their country, that when a person presents a visa or attempts to come into the United States, that we know they are who they present as. These other countries, again, the Obama administration and the Congress have identified these 7 countries as having systems that have been compromised through strife, through the advent of terrorism, in the case of Syria, through civil war, so that we need to step back to make sure that we have the additional safeguards. And I got to tell you, President Trump has a lot of priorities, but his #1 priority is the safety and security of the American people, and that's why this decisive action took place.
Doesn't it come down to really a simple choice between whether or not we will accept that some people are inconvenienced? And by the way, every American traveler, unless of course you have Air Force 2 or Air Force 1, but every American traveler is inconvenienced for the safety and security of everyone else.
Right.
Is it a choice between the inconvenience of some that want to come to our country versus gambling with the lives of the American people?
I think it's exactly that choice. And at the end of the day, you know, on the very day the executive order was implemented, within the next 24 hours, there were hundreds of thousands of people that came in from countries all over the world into the United States. And I think more than 100 were detained for additional questioning. That is a small price to pay for the security of the American people. I mean, look, we live in very dangerous times. There are people all across the world who are engaged in unthinkable violence. The President spoke again about that this week at the National Prayer Breakfast. And I think what people welcome in this administration, and they welcome in our new president, is a clear-eyed look at the world, a recognition of the threat of radical Islamic terrorism to the United States, and that we've just got to do things differently to make sure that our families and our communities and our nation is safe.
At the prayer breakfast today, the President addressed that in the coming days, those admitted will fully embrace our values, religious, liberty values, etc., and respect, of course, and reject discrimination and other things. Was he addressing in that sense that there is a cultural divide? If you grow up in a country and as a man you feel you have the right to tell a woman how to dress, that a woman can't drive a car, you decide as a man if a woman goes to work or school, if gays and lesbians are killed, if Christians and Jews are persecuted. Those values are so distinctly different and contradictory to our constitutional values. Do we have a right to know whether or not they want to come here and adopt our values? And how do you ever ascertain what's in somebody's heart?
My grandfather immigrated to this country when he was about my son's age. And he came here because he wanted to be an American. He wanted his children to be Americans and his grandchildren to be Americans. I can't imagine what that Irishman is thinking now as he looks down from glory. Other than he was right about America, that anybody can be anybody. But when my grandfather came here, it's because he loved and admired this country, and he loved the ideals enshrined in our Declaration and our Constitution. That's what President Trump is talking about. Is we want people who come to this country because they love the ideals of America. They love our commitment to freedom, our rejection of intolerance and oppression, and that's been true throughout our history.
And up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
The American people said we want to repeal Obamacare, and we're working with leadership in the Congress to do just that.
More of our sit-down